important options about the forms, working with the forms. And these are the forms related some properties we discussed. So yesterday I given you what is ID, name, class, what is a form method, and what is form action, the purpose of action, how to deal with them. The form have a few more important attributes. Another important attribute for the form in the attributes, the form attribute. So we have another important attribute by name. We have form target. Target is a simple option actually. It is just like a link target. Actually, it submits the form data to display, submits the form data to specified action and display in a new tab. Actually, it will display new tab or frame. Already we know target in link, the same thing, it submits the form data. Same thing will happen for target here. Suppose see, generally in the last session I showed you this example. So when we are configuring, we are accessing this local host and full stack. So full stack, and in full stack, so we have some register.html. Now when I entered some details here and I submitted the details, you can see that these details are displayed here. So the details are displayed and shown in the same page. In the same window, it is submitting. We can just add an attribute called target. Target, you know, we can use underscore blank or we can use the frame name. Now when I keep the target as blank and entered some name and submit, then it is going to submit those details in a separate tab. And you can see that it opens in a separate tab. So this is the page and submits in a separate tab. That is target. It can be in a tab or a frame. Already we know about those options. Another important, we have another attribute, that is no validate. No validate is another important attribute. Actually, no validate is an attribute which is used to disable validation. Actual HTML5 is configured. HTML5 allows validation. HTML, you can say that it provides validation. HTML5 actually provides validation. But what is problem in validation is it provides validation. So, but these validations may not suit the client requirements. So hence, so we have to bypass the validations. We have to bypass the validations. So no validate. So actually the purpose of no validate is it is used to disable the HTML validations. These validations, right? So it is used to disable HTML validations. For example, how it is going to work, let's see. Later we will learn about validations, but see the point here. Suppose we are asking for email, and here I given email, and when I type here, you can observe it is email. I am typing here John. I am not typing proper email, and I click on submit. Email should have a certain format. When I click on submit, it is going to submit that. It is going to submit, but due to validation, because email will verify whether you have a proper email or not. When I submit, it says that please include at the net in email. So that is good. That is good. It is verifying. But what is problem is, it is verifying. The problem is, suppose I put at the net and G, and I click on submit, it will submit it, but it is not yet a proper email, but still it is submitting it. It is going to submit and it is going to manage this actually. So this is the general problem that you will face while working with validations. So such validations we don't want. We should bypass such validations. We should bypass those validations. So why? Because we want to write our own validations. We need to configure our validations, right? Right. So we need to configure and handle these validations. So how do we configure the validations? So validations we will see when you are working with it. Now, how to bypass this validation? We don't want that validation to work. Why? Because we will write in JavaScript jQuery, we will write validation. Then we can simply put here an option. The option is we will add an attribute. Already I told you attributes don't have any order dependency. You can add attribute anywhere. I will add an attribute here, no validate. No validate indicates that. So that means now no more validations are required. No more validations will be used here. I will use no validate, and I will here refresh this and entered something else and clicked on submit. It is not validating. If it is not validating, you have to write validation manually. That you will do in JavaScript. So why to disable HTML validations? Because they will disturb our validations, because many times they not suit our validation. That is the reason better to disable the validations and use the validation. So we can disable the validations. So how you can disable the validations? Just you have to use no validate. So it is used for bypassing the validations, right? Syntactically, target and no validate in this way. This is a basic example of those two options, so we can configure. So while working with the forms, these are all important form related attributes. So finally, what are all the form attributes? Form element attributes. The form element related attributes. What are the attributes we are having? So we have the attributes ID, we have name, we have class. So we have method, we have action, we have no validate, and we have target. So these are important attributes that are used for the form, and these are the major ones. And the differences in understanding get and post, we need to know about that. Already we saw that. Now the next important, after understanding how to design the form, the container, the second option, now inside the form, how we can define the elements. For that, we have to know about form. We need to know about form in. Actually, we designed a form, but we just discussed only about the form. So form is actually a simple container, is a container. And inside the form, the attribute form, you saw this. Inside the form, now I need some elements. I need some elements so that user can input the values and manage the values. Okay, let's see how we can do that. So this form, I'm keeping this in a div, and in that we have a form. Okay, and here I'm adding a div, a label. So here user name, like this, and here under that we have another div, that is, here we need to display the username. Okay, now I will simple create one design. So I will create some design and we will see how we can manage that with the options. Yeah, technically, so when you are dealing with this controls, let's see, here we will put a ID or class as container, and here we are using container, and that is the container. For the container I am defining, so border as 2 pixel solid, some dark scale, and padding we defined as some 20 pixel, and a width as some 300 pixel, and justify content to center, align items to center, and margin to auto. So these are the basic things I kept here. Then I will keep that box shadow 2 pixel, so 2 pixel, 3 pixel darks here. That is just an appearance I given for that. And border radius as some 10 pixel. So this is, and here we will keep a header inside the container. So register user. Okay, now let's run this and see, and it is going to display that here. Right, that is displaying here. So this is register user, and I will keep this in a more less size here. Fine. Okay, now here in the approach, so padding as 10 pixel is okay. Fine. Now wherever heading is there, so let's keep the heading, and text align center. Okay, we'll keep that center. Has username, and Generally, if we want some details in that, if we want the details to display into it, so what we will do is here, how you can allow to enter the username. So see here, generally when we are designing the forms, so one more important element that you will come across here is labels. Actually, labels inside the form. So first I will give about a label, form label. Actually, it is used to display. It is used to display titles and captions, for controls. Display titles and captions for controls. Actually, label 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 can bind with specific element, to handle effects. Label can bind with specific element to handle effects. That is important about label. So it can handle that. That means I will show you that how it can bind. To bind label with any element, you can use the attribute. You can use the attribute for label for. You can use the attribute for. For is an important attribute for labels. So and label is designed. Syntax I will give, just syntax. Syntactically, how you design label. So label, and we can have for label for element ID. For which element this label should work, that we have to give. That is a label, a very simple label. So we are using a label, and we are configuring the label. You can see that is the label. For which element it should work, I will tell you that. For that we need an element. So this is one div. Label is for displaying titles and captions. And wherever label is there, I will keep font weight as bold. Label will be bold. So you can see the label will be bold. We can change the font size, colors and all, right? And entire the form, the container. So font family Arial. I am changing the font family to Arial. So that will give a font family. Okay. For this heading, I will just keep a general heading. That means I will just keep a div and register user. And this div will have a class called heading. And I will use the class like here. So heading will be aligned to center, and here I will say font size as 20 pixel. That means heading font size we are increasing, and font weight as bold. So that is, it is font thickness will have. Okay, this is username, and see here, design a form in that this is one div with username. Okay, first we will design outline, then we will go detailing. This is one div. Now for this div, another div I will define as with a label password. Another div I will give with a label as age. So another div I will give with a label as date of birth. And another label, so I'll give as the email. So another div, so label, so your channel, something like this. So some options, another div, here I defined a label, right? Favorite color, something, some options we are defining here. Now all the labels are one below another. All the labels are defined one below another. Now what we will do is I will use a class. I will use a class called form group. We are writing manually a form group. Form group will have a margin. So margin. So form group is having margin top. So form group is defined with margin top. So some 20 pixels. So that is the margin top for 20 pixels. Okay. This form group is defined. This form group is defined for all these groups here. This div will use a class form group. And all these divs are using password is a form group, age is a form group, date of birth is a form group, email is a form group, your channel is a form group, favorite color is a form group. And you can see that. So all have some space now. That's good. Vertically some space we have adjusted for that. Okay, that means now we can configure this how much it's your wish. Suppose 30 pixels. Every group should have some more space adjusting. Okay. Now here we want the user to input those details. That means we want user to enter the details like username, password, age. User should input those details. So that means how you can manage form input. So actually in HTML to allow input of any value, allow input of any value in a form contain in a form. To allow input of any value in a form, HTML provides an element. HTML provides an element input. HTML provides an element input. Here you should know clearly about this. Many times people know HTML but not proper technical HTML. If you ask them how I can a text box, then immediately they will answer input type text, sir. Immediately they will answer input type text to get a text box. That is wrong actually. Why? Because actually in HTML, technically you should know that actually in HTML, input itself is a text box. Input itself is a text box. This input allows any type of value. Not input type text is text box. That is wrong. That is what generally people with general knowledge on HTML, they know about it. But technically, so input is an element. Input is an element. That means the form input is managed by by input element. Actually, it allows so you can observe here. So here after username, I'm just using a div and say input. That's it. I'm using the same. I'm using the same below every option. Password also input. Age also input. And date of birth also input. Date of birth also input. Email also input. Email also input. Channel also input. It is just using input. Favorite color also input. Input. And I defined another like class as form group. And here we have a label, and this is upload 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 photo. And here we have a div that is also input. Only input I am giving here, nothing else. And you can see that now your form is having all the details. You can see all are input only. All are input only. All are input. It is defined with input. So that means now you can see that this form contains everything. All are input on. All are allowing options. So height, width, colors, effects, you can change for them. Suppose I am using anywhere input is there. Suppose height I defined as some 20 pixel. Input height as 20 pixel. And border radius as some 10 pixel. That means you have some rounded corners for them. It depends on how you want to display. Presentation is our wish, right? That is. And I defined width as 100%. That means the input width will fit into this. 100% means it will fit up to the borders. It will fit up to the borders. Height you defined, either you want 30, how you want to configure the height. So these are all input options. These are all input options. So you can see now, so you have input. Input is enough. It allows to input value. But the point is, input is an element which allow to input any type of value. Any type of value. That is the concept. Then what we have to do is, we have to restrict the values. We have to restrict the values. We need to restrict the values to specific type. Suppose we are asking email, it should allow only email. We are asking password, then password should mask the characters. So if we are asking age, then it should allow only number. If we are asking date of birth, it should allow only date. That is what actually we can manage, usually we can do. So now, how to restrict the input to a specific type. That means by default, input as any value. You can see here in type a number, a text, you can type number, anything. To change the letter size, you can use here font size as some 20 pixel. That means the font size of this input will change. Now when I type here, it will be in this way. Now you can see that age, you can type a number. Age, so that means by default, input is an element which allows input of any type of value. So you can restrict the input type by using various data types provided by HTML. we can restrict the input type by using various data types provided by HTML. So the data types are defined by using type attribute. They are defined by using type attribute, and the various data types supported, various data types provided by HTML. There are various data types provided by HTML. What are the various data types provided by HTML? Let's see. And how you define the data types? By using type attribute, you define the data types. By using the type attribute, we define the data types. What are the various data types available? And how do we deal with those data types? So the basic data types, let's see. So data type, and the description. So what are the data types and the description? So the basic data types that are provided by HTML. One is text. Text is a type. So now text is used for string values. String values means so it allows alphanumeric and special characters. If I write like this, that means syntactically we need to define like this: input type is equal to text. So type text is not a text box. Type text is the data type of that input actually, right? But generally many of our HTML people made this as text box, input type as text box. Actually, it is not text box. Input itself is a text box. You saw that practically. So type is data type. That means it tells that text means it is a string type of value. You can define a string type of value. So we can configure the string type value. That is what actually you see that here. Wherever you want that, you can define. Suppose here for username, I will give type as text. Okay, that is the type. So text is the type. It will not have any difference because by default you can see it is that text type only. It will allow alphanumeric and symbols and special characters, anything. So this is the type. So input type is this one, text. Yeah. Several properties are there. We will discuss one by one. First, we will understand the types. Okay. Next option. This is for text. We have another data type, that is password. Password. Actually, it is used for password character, password input. It is used for password input, which can mask the characters, with asterisk. It can mask the characters with asterisk. So that what characters are typed, you cannot see. They are masked with asterisk actually. It can mask the characters with asterisk. So here for password, wherever password is required, I will use type as password. And here syntactically we define input type is equal to password. So that is for password input. Now when I say password for input type password, now you can see that. So refresh Here username, I entered some username. Password, whatever I am typing, it will mask with password characters. And you see recent browsers have this I symbol displaying, which you can click for showing and hiding the password. Earlier, we have to write that with CSS and JavaScript to handle like this. But now recent browsers all support this mechanism. We don't need to write much for that. But here the password characters. So it is masked with this asterisk, and actually in the background, some characters are present. So that is password input, simple password input. For that, we have to give password. Remember, lot of attributes are there. Don't hurry into them. First, you listen one by one. You will understand all the points, because many times immediately people ask a question, sir, how do I restrict 4 characters, 10 characters, 20 characters? All you will learn. But here we are just discussing about type. It has a lot of attributes. Once you know all those attributes, you will get answer for every question. So no need to hurry into that. First, we need to understand what is this type attribute and what are the types provided by HTML. One is text type, another one is password type. Okay, good. Another one, so we have a number type. We have a number type. Actually, number type, so it is used for number input. For number input, it is used for number input. Number input. Actually, what it does is, number input is nothing but, so it is used for it is used for displaying a numeric up down control. That means it can render. Render means generating output. Generating output is called render. It can render a numeric up down control, numeric up down control, so that user can choose between values, between numbers, choose between numbers. Lot of attributes are there, I will tell you. Other attributes are there, how to deal with them we will discuss. First, let's discuss the type, then go into other attributes. So that means it will restrict the number. It is used for restricting number input. Restricting number input, that is important. Restricting number input means it will not allow to input any another value. For example, suppose age. Currently I can input a string, but I want to allow only number. Then what we can do here is we can go to age, and here input type I will give as number, and you can see that. So it is going to display here name. I entered some name, and password. So yeah, password, some password, and age. I am trying to type some string. It is not working. It will allow only numbers. And you see there is a numeric up down, right side up down. I can select the numbers. I can choose the numbers. We can set a range. We can set a step value. All we will discuss. First we will see number type. Then we will see how to restrict them. So here, that is numeric input. That means input type can be number. Input type can be number. Syntactically, input type can be number. It is used for numeric values. Another important in the input, we have date. We have input date. Actually, for date, we have 3 options actually. We have date, We have date time. So we have date and we have date time local, date time local. And related to date, actually, we also have month. We also have month. So we can also use a month, or we can also use the option like years, month, time, week. We can define them. You can also use time. We can also use time, and we can also use week. We can also use week. These all options can be defined. That means date related, so many options are present. Actually, earlier, date time was there. It is no longer valid. It is gone. It is obsolete. We should not use it anymore. So they are outdated now. So we can use only these important options here. Date related recommended options are these. We have date. So we have date time local. We have month, time, week. Observe the difference here. For input the date. What is date? You see here, I changed date of birth. So this is date of birth. Currently it is normal string. I will change this date of birth, type as date, type as date. You can see that when you say date, automatically a calendar will come and you click on the calendar, it will open the dates. And you can choose the date and we can configure the dates. We can choose the dates and we can configure the dates. We can select the dates, so month, years, and we can select that and it will display it. So dates we can choose, we can configure and define them. So that is date value. That means how we can configure and define the date values, right? So this is the date value, how to configure. But for that we have three options. This is showing only date here. From the calendar, we can display the date and we can configure the date, right? Now, important here is after the date. So we need to understand about another option. We need to understand that there are so many inputs for this. Like you try here, instead of date, I use the other option, date time, time local. Don't use date time anymore. You will, it will work date time, but it is not recommended. It is outdated. It is not recommended anymore. It is obsolete now. So we have date time local. Date time local. So you can see that it will display date and time also. It will display both date and time values also. That means you can choose date and you can choose the time value also. You can choose the date and time values, right? And you can configure those values, the date time values and configuring the date time values. So we can use the date time values and define the date time values. So what is difference between date and time? What is difference between date and time? So date time local and date. Actually simple. Actually date is nothing but it will display a date picker, a date picker. So it will display date picker. And date time local, it will display a date time picker, date time picker. It will display a date time picker. That is the option. We just, you have to define syntactically, you have to configure input type is equal to date. And here we have to define input type is equal to date time local. That's how we need to configure. So depending on what kind of input you want. So we have another option. We have month. If I define the month option, you can see that here in the calendar, now it will show the month selection. And you select the month. So here you can see the month will come. And here you can see that. So this is the month. You can choose the years. You can select the years. So we can choose the month. It will get that month and year. So that means month is actually for two options, month and year actually. So that means it is used to. So it will display month and year picker. So we have to just define. So option input type is equal to month. It depends on our requirement. Suppose here one more options are, so several options are there. I told you we will learn about attribute because immediately several people come with question like, sir, how to restrict the dates, how to select multiple dates. Of course, you will learn them, right? For that, we need so many attributes. Currently, our concept is how to define input, how we can define the input and what is difference between different input. Let's change this to time now and verify. So when I say time, you can see that here only time picker will come. You can choose the time and we can select the time. Only time picker is displayed. So input type time. So it will display time picker. It will display time picker. Just we need to define as input type is equal to time. We need to configure that. And week is also an option. So that means it allows you to select a week of month and year. Week. I select this week. You can see a week picker will come. That means you can choose a week here. So that means I selected the week number is 42. That means from the January to now, currently the week is 42. Oh, I want next week. I will select that week 43. That means all the dates in that week are selected actually. How to get the dates and use those dates that you have to do in JavaScript, right? So here it is week 43 indicates that it is going to return all the days of that particular week in that particular year. But here we are just selecting them, how to read them. That's what we generally do in JavaScript. That means it is week picker. So it will display. So week picker. So you can select you can select all days of a week from any specific year. That is what actually we can do. Syntax. So it is input type is equal to week. That means for dealing with dates, time, values, you have so many things. You have a date, you have date, time, local, you have month, you have time, you have week. We have the option week. Okay. Now another option. So these are all input types depending on requirement we need to use. So what I will do is for our date of birth example, we will keep date only is enough. We'll keep that to date. User can select any specific date. Okay. Next, another important in the input, we have email type. Actually, it is used to validate email input. But one problem is that email validation may not be according to you. Email input. Validate email input means, so that means the value you input, must be in a valid email format. That is what email is. So, but remember here, I will go here. Input type is email. Actually, when it will verify whether it is having a email or not, suppose I type it like this. I typed something like this. So it is not showing any error. Why? Because every validation will fire up. So on submit. So here, that is a very important note. Keep a note here. Validations of HTML will fire up on form submit. And to submit form, you need a submit button. Initially, submit button. You can submit by using different controls also, by adding some logic. Submit button. And later we will discuss about buttons. So the submit button is designed. This is the button. This is submit button. You can give any name. You can give any text. So this is the text, and you can give this button. This is submit button. Later we will have a separate discussion on buttons. So there you will learn so many things about the buttons. So initially, we need a submit button to verify that validations. So what I will do is, I will create the div. In the div, I will keep a class as form group. Okay, because form group is here. I will keep a button. I will just keep submit button. Or you can give word. You can give any word. Register. And you can see there is a register button. For that button also, I usually here button. So some background color as white. Border radius as 5 pixels. And the font as some 20 pixels. So and width as 100%. I give a button actually. And usually the button will be like this. We have a register button. Here we have a register button. Now observe carefully. Now that is fine. And padding as some 10 pixel. Okay, some space for the button. So padding it is taking outside. So let's keep this one enough. Fine. Now you can see here, this is the button, and you entered email. Some entered wrong email, and click on register. When I click on register, then only it will verify. Please include at the net. It will verify. So how to submit, I will tell you. We will discuss about that. So, but we entered some john@gmail.com. Now click on register. It is submitted. How to collect that submitted values, we will see that, right? But initially, validations will fire up on submit click. So email is to validate the email. It is used to validate the email. Syntax, we have to define input type is equal to email. That is how we define email. There is another important is URL. There is another important URL. Actually, it is used to validate URL input. That means the value you input must be in proper URL format. URL format means HTTP, www your domain. So domain.com, that is actually URL, correct URL format. It should be in URL format. So if it is not, then it will not accept. That means, so here we have an option like your channel, and here I will put, so type input type as URL. We have input type URL, and you can see that. So input type URL, so your channel, I'm entering something like youtube.com/my channel like this, and click on register. It says please enter URL. A proper URL should contain https:// and click on register, then it is submitted. Otherwise it is not allowed. So https:// www.youtube.com. It should be in proper. So you have my channel, something like this. You have to write in a proper URL only. Other than URL, anything you try to submit, it is not allowed. You have to type a proper URL. You have to type a proper email. So that is URL input, email input. How we can manage the URL and email input of values. We have another important, actually we have a tell also. Tell is, it is used, actually it is used for mobile input. But problem is we don't use it very much. Why we don't use it very much? Because actually it will give telephone. So, but the problem is telephone formats are not correct according to our requirement. So telephone numbers, phone numbers, but it is not according to our requirement. Again, we have to write validations. So that means why it is not according to our requirement, because actually telephone numbers means, so it should be a number with 10 digits starting with some +91, but it depends on country. According to the country, we need to put the validations, right? For example, suppose I want another div here. I will keep another div, and here I will put a class as form group. So form group, and here I keep a label. I keep a label as mobile, and here I have a div, and input type is equal to mobile tell. Tell is for telephone number, and you can see that mobile comes here, and I am entering some values, and I am entering some values, and I click on register. So it is submitted. But see, any number I typed here, it is submitted. Any lengthy number I typed, suppose I am typing some string here and submit, it is also submitted. That means it is there, but it is not good for our requirements. So we have to add some patterns, validations, and write them. How to write patterns and validations, we will tell. Actually, it requires a pattern. It requires a pattern to validate mobile input. How to write that pattern, you are going to learn in attributes. We will discuss about that. So this is not much recommended. So input type is equal to tell, not recommended, because without that also we can manage. So we don't use this very much, but it is there. You have input type URL and you have input type tell. Another option, you have a color also. Actually, it is used to display a color picker, so that you can pick a color and you can select a color. Suppose you see favorite color. So input type is equal to color. Input type is equal to color. You can see that a color picker will come. In the favorite color area, a color picker comes here. Now I'm selecting this, clicking on this, a color picker will be there. You can choose any color. So you can select any color and you can choose that color here. So a color picker will come. Now remember one important point. These inputs actually are latest inputs, and several old browsers don't support them. That is the reason tomorrow you will come with a complaint. Sir, in my computer, color is not working, number is not working. So you once verify in another browser which is advanced, because in old version browsers, these will never work. So because these are latest features, advanced options, so they will work in advanced browsers. That is the reason. If in old browsers it is not working, they have to design by using JavaScript, jQuery, and create them. So we need a combination. So this is a regular complaint from people working with old browsers because it's not suitable for them, because some old browsers don't support this at all. So that means you observe here, I will open this in a browser called Internet Explorer. In Internet Explorer, I am opening the same page. So the same page I am opening on Internet Explorer. And here I entered the username, fine. Password, fine, working. Age, so it's not taking, good, but number up down is not coming. Text input, it is not there. See, in my advanced browser, I have a numeric up down. Here I don't have that. And here I have a date picker. And here I don't have a date picker. Email validation, okay. Email validation will be working fine. Email validation will be working fine. It is more good than my browser I am having here. But it's okay. The point is, some are working, some are not working. Color picker is not there. So that means several browsers don't support them. That's the reason. Use alternative methods also to target different types of browsers. Generally, we do that by JavaScript and jQuery designing as color. So that means it will display a color picker. Just syntactically, you define input type is equal to color. Next, we have a range also, range. So it is used to display. It is used to display a slider. It is used to display a slider where user can pick a value from range of values. So that is what actually range. So for example, I'm defining here. So class as form group, and here we have a label, and in the label we define as price, rate, and the date. Input type is equal to range. I'm using range, and you can see there and select the value. But how to define the range, minimum, maximum, that we will see. How to get the range, that is JavaScript, jQuery, we can get the range. On submitting of the form also, the range will come. So for that we need to design other attributes also. So this is a range picker. So that means it is used to display a slider from where user can select a range of values. Input type is equal to range. Another option you have, so in the input, we have an option called file. Actually, it is used to display file browser. It is used to display the file browser. So display the file browser, right? So the display the file browser. I already just now told you if we have to target different browsers, we have to use JavaScript jQuery. Have you listened to that concept? Have you heard about that? I hope you understood. Just now, very clearly, I explained that we have to use JavaScript jQuery, right? I hope that is the answer for your question. Don't you think is that the answer for your question? Fine. Right. So already we discussing the point regularly from the beginning onwards. From the beginning onwards, we are discussing that these need to be customized according to requirements. They will not fit for our requirements. Every time I'm talking about the same point again and again. So please don't miss that, right? So why? Because again the doubt comes. Again with the same doubt people come. Sir, how to put a range? So how to write for browsers? That is what I am saying. These are not supported for browsers. We have to use JavaScript jQuery to do that, right? Yeah. So file browser, that means so that user can select a file and upload file and upload onto server. But uploading is done by writing the logic functionality, selecting the file. So that means here we can just keep this input type is equal to file. Input type equal to file. So then you can see a choose file option will come and you can click here and you can select any file. And that file, so I choose any file, images, any file. So then you can see the file name will come here when you select any image and choose the file, that file related name will come. We can select multiple files, we can choose multiple files. There are several options to handle. You are just learning only one attribute, that is type. Once you know other attributes, then you will understand how to restrict them, how to configure them. Our first point is what are the various input types available? What are the various input data types available? How to deal with the various input data types? Actually, these input data types, these are used for different types of values to input, right? They are used for different values to input. Actually, so when you are configuring, so a form, we expect different values to input and we can restrict them. But all restrictions cannot happen simply. We have to write a lot of logic also. JavaScript, jQuery, lot of options are required. Now another input we are having. So that means I keep here a search site. So here I define a div. We have an input type called search. So actually the intention of this search, the general intention of this search is nothing but the main intention of this search is actually to display a search icon and configure a search icon. But all browsers are not supporting them. That's the reason we don't use this very much. Very rarely few browsers will support that. So we don't use this very much. Actually, what happens is that search will give a search box, search box. In the other control, currently it will give a close box. You can close that. You see general text boxes, they will not have a close option. But the search is provided with a close box. You can click on that close box and you can clear the search. But later you can replace this close with a search icon. You can replace that with a search icon. So with CSS, we do that. So by using CSS later, if we want, we can change that icon close into a search icon. With CSS, we can manage that. By default, it will give you that search option to clear. That means what is the facility here is, so search is used to, it is used to display a search box, which allows to clear, to clear the search string. You customize the search clear icon with search icon using CSS. So basically we can configure input type is equal to search. That's how we need to define how we handle this. These are all various types of inputs available in HTML. So remember, you just learned about different types of input. That means only one attribute you learned. Remember, these are all the values for an attribute called type. So these are all not attributes. These are the values for an attribute called type. So currently you learned only one attribute called type. Input have several attributes. That means how to restrict the text range, how to restrict the password, how to restrict the number range, how to restrict the date, how to restrict the telephone numbers, how to restrict the how to define file for multiple files, how to restrict the range for minimum and maximum values. These requires all other attributes that we will see in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we will discuss about the other attributes of input. Currently you learned only one attribute, type. Then other attributes, how to deal with them, you will see. With this type, one example we created. That example I will give it to you. So this is the example I created with only input type. Other attributes, we will see how to deal with them in our next session. Tomorrow we'll continue with that. Right.